Well, let's start, if you don't mind, by telling our audience a little bit about yourself and what it is that you're doing at UC Merced.
So I'm an associate professor of sociology at UC Merced. I'm affiliated with the UC Merced Community and Labor Center, and we do research on issues that relate to community, labor, and employment in the San Joaquin Valley and the state of California and beyond.
You and an associate have just come out with a paper that anybody who reads it will say is both shocking and, yeah, I kind of suspected that. Would you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Sure. In July, our center released a policy brief, Hidden Threat, California COVID-19 Surges and Worker Distress. In it, we examined the relationship between low-wage worker households, large households, and COVID-19 positivity rates above 8%, which place counties on the state's watch list.
And 8%, for those who haven't been paying attention, is a very serious level, to say the least. To what do you attribute this bizarre behavior in the Central Valley?
Well, I wouldn't call it bizarre behavior. I think uh, so. When we look at the relationship between low-wage worker households, large households, and COVID, we see that in those counties that have above the state average in household size and low-wage worker households, um, that these counties are almost uniformly on the state's COVID-19 watch list with positivity rates above 8%. Um, 14 out of 15 of the counties that meet that criteria were on the watch list with positivity rates above 8%. Of those that did not meet the criteria that I just mentioned of large households and low-wage households, out of 37 counties, only 2 were on the state's watch list with positivity rates above 8%. And so what this indicates is that that COVID-19 is spreading not just because people don't wear masks or because crowds are gathering in public, but because of some dynamic that's occurring within the workplace in these counties.
So many of the low-wage workers in the valley, of course, work in agriculture, either in packing sheds or out in the fields. If they're in the fields, though, that presumably would be more healthy than a lot of other environments.
Well, we're not too sure still about how COVID spreads through aerosols. I mean, that's still a topic of debate and research. Um, but what we do know is that worker health and safety are key to mitigating the spread in low-wage essential workplaces. And unfortunately, this hasn't gotten as much attention as some of the other more dominant discussions in the public arena. We keep hearing that it's important to wear masks and not to visit family. A lot of the focus is on our private behavior. Um, uh, Less of it is on what is happening in low-wage essential workplaces. And I would like to add that the policy interventions up to this point have largely focused on protecting middle-class workers. As a professor, I can work from home. I have that option. I also have the option of taking time off from work because I get paid well enough that I don't have to worry about putting food on my table or paying the rent. Many American workers do not have those luxuries, and they are worried about how to put food on a table and how to pay the rent. And so, because we have failed to grapple with the effect that the pandemic has had on those furthest on the margins, the lowest earning workers, um, we've effectively failed to mitigate the spread of COVID in those spaces.
I heard some commentator recently, or perhaps it was a politician, saying that the spread of the disease among low-wage earners is almost going to seemingly would wipe out uh, an entire socioeconomic class of people if it were allowed to continue.
Well, I think it's right to share a sense of urgency and just disappointment with the way that our policies have failed us. But it is important to just to put things into perspective and to be aware that most people who contract COVID won't die. So I don't believe that it would wipe out an entire workforce of people. What I do think it's going to wipe out are entire businesses, that it's going to put entire industries to halt if we don't if we fail to mitigate the spread of this virus. Because even people who shop don't want to go to stores when they know that their health is at risk. And so the question is, what interventions can we make so that businesses can stay open, so that workers can work, so that we can enjoy a better standard of living than what we have when there are stay-at-home orders, schools are shut down, businesses are shut down, entire industries can't function.
And what thoughts do you have on that? What should be done if you had the magic wand and you were to go to the governor or the guy in the White House and say, "I've got the magic wand. Here's the solution. Let's do this." What would that be?
I think an effective magic wand would have an emergency temporary standard for worker health and safety. Um, with This is not popular among businesses, but with consequences for those businesses that fail to comply, and as well a greater safety net for low-wage workers that are unable to access traditional unemployment benefits, paid sick leave, or family leave. Um, and a magic wand would also have uh, more transparency, reporting by industry, so that we understand where COVID is spreading and we can more effectively tailor our responses. And these things may sound a little crazy in this context, but they're being done in other countries. In other places, there's greater transparency and stricter standards, in workplaces, and those have been effective in mitigating the spread of COVID, which I think is a lesson to us. If we love business so much and we love our independence and being able to be in public as much as possible, um, let's implement those things that are effective, and so that we can reduce the spread of the virus and enjoy these things we love.
Our audience, the folks watching and listening, primarily business people and some middling level state and federal employees for some reason. Uh, what can a business owner do today or tomorrow to help the situation?
I think they can work with their Chamber of Commerce to effectively show support for better standards in the workplace. Because um, if we have um, industry standards that are a race to the bottom, and cutthroat economic competition, it may be that business owners are afraid to have strict standards because their efficiency might go down, because their competition might produce more than they can and put them out of business. I mean, we need to have a fair playing field for all businesses, but at the same time, safeguard the health and safety of workers so that those businesses can continue to prosper.
Now, we have been all over the map with questions and answers. What would you like to add that I haven't been bright enough to ask you?
No, nothing at all. I think you asked great questions. And I want to thank you for your interest in this topic. I know um, COVID-19 is the most serious issue that our country faces today. People are dying, people are out of work, small businesses are being lost. Um, we haven't yet found the right policies for navigating this crisis. Um, but the difficult thing is to have these conversations, to listen, to learn about what it is that we're not already doing that we could do, so that we can begin to experience the freedoms that we love once again. And so I just want to commend you on having this conversation, and being willing to, be willing to have this conversation. Thank you.